My name is Michael Chen, and I'm 28 years old. I live in Portland, Oregon, where the rain falls like a constant reminder that some things in life are meant to be gray. I'm a graphic designer, or at least that's what I tell people at parties when they ask what I do. The truth is more complicated. I freelance, which is a polite way of saying I scrape together projects while my parents wonder where they went wrong. My younger brother Kevin is everything I'm not. At 26, he's already a senior analyst at a tech startup downtown, the kind that has kombucha on tap and meditation pods. He drives a Tesla. He owns a condo with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River. He's the son my parents Richard and Grace Chen parade around at family gatherings like a trophy they've polished to perfection. My former girlfriend now, is Emma Martinez. She's 27, works as a marketing coordinator at a sustainable fashion company, and has this laugh that used to make even my worst days bearable. We met at a coffee shop in the Pearl District 2 years ago. She was reading a book about minimalism while I was sketching logos on my iPad. "That's beautiful," she'd said, pointing at my screen, and somehow those 2 words led to 2 years of my life that I thought meant something. The November rain pelted against my parents' house in Lake Oswego as I pulled into their circular driveway. The windshield wipers squeaked against the glass, a rhythmic complaint that matched my mood. I'd bought a bottle of wine, nothing fancy, just a $15 Pinot Noir from Trader Joe's, because showing up empty-handed to Thanksgiving dinner would have given my mother another reason to purse her lips. Emma sat in the passenger seat, smoothing down her burgundy dress. "It'll be fine," she said, though her voice carried that forced brightness that meant she was nervous too. "Your parents invited us. That's progress, right?" I wanted to believe her. For months, my mother had been making comments about how I needed to get serious about life, which was code for be more like Kevin. But this invitation felt different. Maybe they were finally ready to accept that I was building something, even if it didn't come with a 401k and stock options. The house smelled like sage and butter when we walked in. My mother had gone all out. The good china was on the table, the one she inherited from my grandmother and only used for special occasions. Kevin was already there, of course, helping our father pour drinks in the kitchen. He wore a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Michael," my mother's voice was honey-sweet as she emerged from the kitchen, but her eyes did that quick scan they always did, taking in my faded jeans, my old pea coat, the rain spots on my shoes. "And Emma, you look lovely." Emma smiled, handing over the flowers she'd insisted on buying. "Thank you for having us, Mrs. Chen." Dinner started with the usual interrogation disguised as small talk. Kevin regaled us with stories about his latest project, something involving blockchain and sustainable investing that I pretended to understand. My father nodded approvingly occasionally, glancing at me as if to say, "See, this is what success looks like. And you, Michael." My mother's fork paused midway to her mouth. "How's the graphic design thing going?" "It's going well," I said, trying to inject confidence into my voice. "I just landed a contract with a local brewery. They want a complete rebrand." "A brewery?" She said it like I'd announced I was designing labels for poison bottles. "Well, I suppose someone has to do it." Emma's hand found mine under the table, a small gesture of solidarity. She started talking about her work, her voice bright and engaging, and I watched Kevin lean in, actually interested. That should have been my first warning sign. After dinner, I helped clear the table while Emma and my mother stayed in the dining room. I could hear their voices low and conversational, but couldn't make out the words over the running water. Kevin joined me at the sink, rolling up his expensive sleeves. "She seems great," he said, and there was something in his tone I couldn't quite place. "Emma, I mean, really grounded, smart. Yeah, she is." I handed him a plate to dry, studying his profile. Kevin had always gotten our mother's best features, the high cheekbones, the perfect nose. I got our father's stubborn jaw and tendency to frown. "You know," he continued, "someone like her could really go places. With the right support, I mean." The plate slipped a little in my hands. "She has support." mine. Kevin shrugged, that casual gesture that had always made me feel like I was overreacting. Of course, I just mean financially, stability-wise. You know, I knew exactly what he meant, and I hated him for saying it out loud. When I went to find Emma, she was alone in the hallway, studying the wall of family photos. Most of them featured Kevin at graduation, Kevin getting his first promotion, Kevin shaking hands with the mayor at some charity event. I was in a few, always slightly out of focus or standing in the background. "Ready to go?" I asked. She nodded, but there was something different in her eyes, a distance that hadn't been there before. The drive home was quiet except for the rain and the swish of the wipers. Emma stared out the window, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. "What did my mom say to you?" I finally asked as we pulled up to her apartment. "Nothing, really." She turned to look at me, and for a moment I saw pity in her expression. It was gone so fast I might have imagined it. She worries about you. About us. "Emma, I'm tired, Michael. Can we talk tomorrow?" She kissed my cheek, not my lips, and disappeared into her building. I sat there for a long time, engine running, watching the rain distort the world outside into something unrecognizable. The texts started changing the week after Thanksgiving, where Emma used to send me random thoughts throughout the day, funny memes, complaints about her coworkers, photos of dogs she saw on the street. Now I got single-word responses. Busy. Can't tonight. Maybe later. I threw myself into the brewery project, spending 16-hour days perfecting logos and label designs. My small apartment in southeast Portland became a cave of coffee cups and crumpled sketches. The client loved my work, even offered me a bigger contract, but the victory felt hollow when I had no one to share it with. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Emma finally agreed to meet me at our usual coffee shop. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in the corner with a cortado she hadn't touched. She'd done something different with her hair, styled it the way she did for important meetings. "Kevin offered me a job," she said without preamble. The words hit me like ice water. What, at his company? Marketing director for their new sustainable division. It's an incredible opportunity, Michael. I stared at her, trying to process what was happening. "You're taking a job from my brother." "It's not like that." But she wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's a legitimate position. The salary is—" She named a figure that made my stomach drop. "More than I'd make in 2 years of good contracts." "This is about money." My voice came out rougher than I intended. "No." She finally looked at me, and there were tears in her eyes. "It's about the future. Our future. Michael, I love you, but love doesn't pay rent. Love doesn't buy health insurance or save for retirement or—" "I'm building something," I interrupted. "The brewery wants to expand our contract. There's a coffee roaster interested in my work. I'm not just sitting around, I know." She reached across the table, then pulled her hand back before touching mine. "But Kevin's offer—" "It's stability. It's growth. It's everything I've been working toward. It's my brother," I said flatly, "who happens to run a successful company." She straightened in her chair, and I saw a resolve there that told me she'd already made up her mind. "I start next Monday." I laughed, but it came out bitter. "And what about us?" The silence stretched between us like a year. "I think," she said carefully, "we should take a break, just while I settle into the new position. It would be complicated otherwise." "Complicated." I repeated the word, tasting its cowardice. "That's what we're calling this." She started crying then, but I was already standing, already walking away. I heard her call my name, but I didn't turn around. The rain had started again, and I let it soak through my jacket as I walked the 20 blocks home, each step taking me further from the life I thought I was building. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I went through our text messages, all 2 years of them. Reading our evolution backward was like watching a flower unblooming. The recent sterile exchanges gave way to warmer conversations, then to the flirty, eager messages of our early days. I stopped at one from last year. You're going to do amazing things, Michael Chen. I can't wait to watch it happen. I deleted the entire thread. The next morning, I called the brewery and accepted their expanded contract. Then I called the coffee roaster and 2 other potential clients I'd been putting off. If Emma wanted stability, I'd show her what I could build. But even as I threw myself into work, I knew I was trying to fill a hole that was shaped like more than just her absence. A week later, my mother called. I heard the wonderful news about Emma's new position. Kevin says she's brilliant. You must be so proud of her. I hung up without responding. December in Portland is a particular kind of miserable. The rain turns to sleet, the sleet turns to rain, and everyone pretends the holiday lights make up for the perpetual gray. I moved through the weeks like a ghost, working until my eyes burned, sleeping in fitful bursts on my couch because my bed still smelled like Emma's shampoo. The brewery project launched to rave reviews. The owner, a bearded guy named Marcus who believed in supporting local artists, commissioned me for their entire seasonal line. The coffee roaster came through with a contract, then a local restaurant. Suddenly my phone was buzzing with inquiries, my inbox full of potential work. The irony wasn't lost on me. Success had finally arrived just in time to show me how empty it felt without someone to celebrate with. I found out about their relationship through Instagram of all places. I'd been scrolling mindlessly one night 3 beers deep and running on 2 hours of sleep when Kevin's face appeared on my screen. He was at some rooftop bar, the Portland skyline glittering behind him, and there was Emma laughing at something off camera. The caption read, "Grateful for unexpected connections." I threw my phone across the room. It survived, unfortunately. The calls from my parents increased. "You haven't been to Sunday dinner in weeks," my mother would say. "Kevin's been asking about you. He says you won't return his texts." I wanted to tell her exactly why I wouldn't return his text. I wanted to describe the betrayal in vivid detail to make her understand that her golden child was a snake in cashmere. Instead, I made excuses about work, about deadlines, about anything but the truth. Tyler, my cousin on my mother's side, was the only family member I could stand to talk to. He lived in Seattle, but came down for a Blazers game in mid-December. We met at a dive bar in Northeast Portland, the kind where the bartender doesn't judge you for ordering whiskey at 2 p.m. "You look like shit," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Thanks, really needed that confidence boost." He signaled for 2 beers. "Want to talk about it?" "Not really." "Good, because I already know." He took a long drink when the beers arrived. "My mom told me. The whole family knows. Kevin and Emma sitting in a tree." "Fuck off, Tyler. Hey, I'm on your side here." He leaned back, studying me. "For what it's worth, I always thought Kevin was a prick. Remember when we were kids and he told your parents I was the one who broke that vase? That was 20 years ago. Patterns, man. People don't change." He paused. "You know what the really messed up part is? Aunt Grace is already talking about what beautiful grandchildren they'll have." I drained half my beer in one go. "Of course she is." "You need to get out of Portland for a while," Tyler said. "Come crash with me in Seattle. Clear your head." "I can't. I've got contracts clients that you can do remotely." He leaned forward. "Mike, staying here and torturing yourself isn't proving anything to anyone. It's just torture." But I was stubborn, another trait from my father, and I stayed. I worked 18-hour days. I took on every project offered. My apartment became a studio, every surface covered with sketches and color swatches and empty coffee cups growing mold. I was building something even if I wasn't sure what anymore. 2 days before Christmas, a package arrived at my door. No return address, but I recognized Emma's handwriting. Inside was a book, the same one she'd been reading when we met, and a letter. I held it for a long time before opening it, like it might bite. "Michael, I know you probably hate me right now, and you have every right to. I never meant for things to happen this way. Your brother and I, it wasn't planned. It just happened. He sees something in me that I need right now, not just the job, but the certainty. The knowing where life is headed. You're brilliant and talented, and you're going to create amazing things. You already are, but I need someone who's already there, not someone who might get there someday. I know how selfish that sounds. I know how awful it makes me. But I'd rather be honest with you now than pretend. I hope someday you can forgive me. I hope someday we can be friends. You deserve someone who believes in your journey, not someone who's impatient for the destination. Emma. I read it 3 times, each word a small cut. Then I lit it on fire in my sink and watched it burn, the smoke alarm shrieking overhead like it was morning, too. That night, I finally cried. Not the dignified tears of movie heartbreak, but ugly, body-shaking sobs that left me exhausted on my bathroom floor. When I was done, I felt empty, but somehow cleaner, like a fever had broken. The next morning, I called Tyler. "That offer still stand, I'll help you pack," he said. I didn't go to Seattle. Instead, I did something more dramatic. I rented a studio space in an old warehouse in southeast Portland, the kind of place where artists went to either find themselves or lose themselves completely. The building smelled like oil paint and sawdust, and my unit was on the 3rd floor with windows that faced the river. On clear days, which were rare, I could see Mount Hood in the distance. The space transformed me. Suddenly, I wasn't just taking contracts, I was creating. I started a series of prints inspired by Portland's underground music scene. I collaborated with local bands, designing album covers and concert posters that captured something raw and authentic about the city. My Instagram following grew from a few hundred to several thousand. People started recognizing my style, seeking me out specifically. Marcus from the brewery became a friend and unofficial mentor. "You've got something," he said one night, looking at my latest designs spread across the studio floor. "Don't let anyone tell you different, but families have a way of pulling you back into their orbit, especially when they think you're damaging their reputation." It started with subtle digs on social media. My mother, who'd barely posted in years, suddenly became very active on Facebook. Photos of Kevin and Emma at family dinners, at charity galas, at wine tastings in the Willamette Valley. The captions were always variations of the same theme: "So blessed to have such successful, ambitious children. Family is everything." The subtext was clear. I was no longer counted among that everything. Then came the phone calls from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. My Aunt Susan, my mother's sister, left a voicemail dripping with fake concern. "Michael, honey, we're all worried about you. Your mother says you're living in some dangerous warehouse, refusing to see family. That's not healthy, sweetheart. Maybe you should talk to someone." My Uncle Robert sent a text, "Heard you're struggling with the Emma situation. Man up, kid. Plenty of fish in the sea." But it was my father's email that really got to me. He'd never been one for technology, so the fact that he'd typed out a message complete with proper punctuation meant he was serious. "Michael, your mother is beside herself. You've abandoned your family for what? To play artist in some fire trap. You're embarrassing yourself and us. Kevin has offered to help you get a real job at his company. Swallow your pride and take it. This jealousy is beneath you." Dad jealousy, as if my problem was simply that I coveted Kevin's success rather than the fact that he'd stolen the woman I loved while my parents cheered him on. I didn't respond. Instead, I channeled my anger into my work. The prints became darker, more complex. I started a series called Family Portraits, Abstract Pieces that captured the suffocating nature of expectations, the way love could become a weapon. Local galleries began to take notice. The real escalation came when my mother showed up at my studio unannounced on a Thursday afternoon. I was in the middle of a commission covered in ink and exhaustion when I heard the knock. She stood in my doorway wearing her Nordstrom best, looking at my space like it might infect her. "This is where you're hiding." She stepped inside carefully as if the floor might give way. "I'm not hiding, I'm working." She surveyed my pieces with the same expression she used when I was a kid and brought home art projects, polite disinterest mixed with disappointment that I wasn't doing something more practical. "Your brother is getting married," she announced. The words hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my hands steady on my work. Congratulations to them. The wedding is in June, a beautiful venue in the gorge. Emma wants you there. I laughed, harsh and bitter. Does she now, Michael? This has gone on long enough. You're being childish. Emma made a choice, the smart choice. You should be happy for them. Get out. I didn't look up from my work. Excuse me, I said. Get out of my studio. You're not welcome here. She clutched her purse tighter. I'm your mother. No, I said, finally meeting her eyes. You're Kevin's mother. You made that clear a long time ago. I'm just the disappointment you had first. Her face went through several expressions. Shock, anger, and finally a cold resolution. If that's how you feel, then fine. But don't come crying to us when this little art experiment fails and you have nothing. After she left, I sat in the silence for a long time. Then I got back to work. What else was there to do? The smear campaign intensified after that. Suddenly, family friends were reaching out to my clients concerned about my mental state. Is it wise to work with someone so unstable, they'd ask. I lost 2 contracts that way before Marcus helped me implement damage control. My mother's Facebook posts became more pointed. Photos of Kevin and Emma with captions like, "So grateful for children who understand family values and success isn't just about money, it's about character." Tyler screenshot them and sent them to me with commentary. Aunt Grace going full soap opera villain. Want me to egg their house. But the worst part was the narrative they'd crafted. In their version, I was the bitter brother who couldn't handle rejection, the struggling artist who lashed out at success, the family disappointment who chose pride over love. And maybe in the dark hours of the night when sleep wouldn't come, I wondered if they were right. The truth has a way of surfacing like bodies in water. It floats up when you least expect it, bloated with consequences no one anticipated. The unraveling began at a first Thursday art walk in the Pearl District. March had arrived wet and wild, but the galleries were packed with people eager to pretend spring was coming. I was showing my family portraits series at a small gallery, standing awkwardly by my work while strangers dissected my pain and called it evocative. That's when I saw her, Elizabeth Romer, Kevin's ex-girlfriend from 2 years ago. She stood in front of my largest piece, a chaotic swirl of reds and blacks I'd painted the night after learning about the engagement. I almost didn't recognize her. She'd cut her long blonde hair into a sharp bob and traded her corporate attire for ripped jeans and a vintage band tee. Michael. She turned, wineglass in hand, eyes widening with recognition. Holy shit, these are yours. Guilty. I moved to stand beside her, both of us staring at my externalized rage. They're... She paused, searching for words. They're exactly what I'd expect from someone Kevin fucked over. I nearly choked on my beer. What? She gave me a long look, then laughed, bitter and knowing. Oh, you sweet summer child. You think you're his first victim? Let me buy you a real drink. We ended up at a dive bar around the corner, the kind where the bartender doesn't water down the whiskey, and the jukebox still plays vinyl. Elizabeth ordered us both doubles and settled in like she was about to tell a war story. Your brother, she began, is a special kind of asshole, the kind who thinks he's the hero of everyone's story. Tell me something I don't know. How about this? She leaned forward. 2 years ago, I was dating this sweet guy named Aaron. Musician, talented as hell, but struggling to make it. Kevin hired him to design sound systems for his office. Then he hired me to do their PR. Within 3 months, he'd convinced me that Aaron was holding me back, that I deserved someone more established. The parallels were so obvious, I felt stupid for not seeing them before. Let me guess, Kevin was that someone. Bingo. She drained half her whiskey. He played the long game, friendly coffee meetings that turned into lunches. Advice about my career that always seemed to lead back to him. Meanwhile, he was telling Aaron that I was too ambitious for him, that I'd leave him behind eventually anyway. Jesus, yeah, the fucked up part, I fell for it. Left Aaron for Kevin. 6 months later, he dumped me for the mayor's daughter. Turned out I was just a conquest. Steal the struggling artist's girl, prove he's the alpha, then move on to the next challenge. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against the bar, and Aaron, last I heard, he moved to Nashville. We don't talk. Her voice cracked slightly. I tried to apologize, but what do you say? Sorry, I let your friend convince me you weren't enough. Sorry, I was too shallow to see what I had. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of shared damage between us. The thing about Kevin, Elizabeth continued, is he genuinely believes he's doing everyone a favor. He thinks he's saving these women from mediocre lives with mediocre men. He gets off on being the better option. And our parents enable it, I said. Of course they do. He's successful, charming, gives them grandchildren to brag about. She stopped seeing my face. Shit, I'm sorry. That was thoughtless. Emma's pregnant. The words came out strangled. Elizabeth's eyes widened. You didn't know. Fuck, Michael, I thought. It's all over their social media. I pulled out my phone with numb fingers, unblocking Kevin's Instagram for the first time in months. There it was, posted just that morning, Emma holding an ultrasound image, Kevin's hand on her still flat stomach, both of them glowing with that particular smugness of announcement. The caption, our greatest collaboration yet. Baby Chen coming this fall. The comments were a chorus of congratulations. My mother's the most effusive, I'm going to be a grandma. So proud of you both for building such a beautiful life together. This is what family is all about. I set the phone down carefully, afraid I might throw it again. Michael, Elizabeth's hand touched my arm. You okay? I need some air. I stumbled outside, the March rain immediately soaking through my jacket. The world tilted and spun, and I found myself laughing horrible, hysterical laughter that had people crossing the street to avoid me. Pregnant. Of course she was pregnant. Of course my replacement came with a built-in family, the kind my mother had been nagging me about for years. Elizabeth found me sitting on the curb, rain and tears indistinguishable on my face. She sat beside me, uncaring about the wet concrete. I know it doesn't help, she said quietly, but she's going to realize what she lost. They always do. Kevin will get bored once the baby comes and life gets hard. He'll find some new struggling artist's girlfriend to save. And Emma will be stuck with a baby and a man who only loved the idea of winning her. I don't want her to suffer, I said, surprised to find it was true. I just want to stop feeling like I'm drowning. Then stop treading water in their ocean, Elizabeth said. Build your own fucking boat. We exchanged numbers before parting ways. Over the next weeks, Elizabeth became an unexpected ally. She introduced me to other artists, other people who'd rebuilt their lives after devastation. She came to my studio, looked at my work with eyes that understood the pain behind it. You should tell your story, she said one day, watching me work on a new piece. Not for revenge, but for release. People need to know they're not alone in this kind of hurt. So I did. I started a blog, anonymous at first, about family betrayal, about losing yourself in others' expectations, about the particular pain of being deemed not enough by the people who should love you most. The response was overwhelming. Comments poured in from people who'd lived similar stories, who'd been the disappointment, the one left behind, the not quite good enough. The blog went viral when someone connected it to my art. Suddenly, galleries weren't just interested in my work. They wanted the story behind it. A prominent art magazine ran a feature, The Artist Who Turned Family Betrayal into Beauty. They didn't name names, but anyone who knew us could connect the dots. My mother called screaming about family loyalty and dirty laundry. My father sent another email threatening legal action for defamation. Kevin had his lawyer send a cease and desist. But the truth was already out there, spreading like wildfire through Portland's interconnected social circles. People who'd witnessed Kevin's pattern of behavior started speaking up. Other exes came forward with similar stories. The Golden Boy's image began to tarnish. The final crack came from an unexpected source. Sarah Kim, the mayor's daughter Kevin had left Elizabeth for. She reached out through Instagram asking to meet. Curious, I agreed. She was everything Kevin would want in a trophy, elegant, connected, beautiful in that untouchable way. But her eyes were tired when she sat across from me at the coffee shop. "He did it to me too," she said without preamble. "Left me for a senator's aide, but not before making me feel like I was never quite enough, like I should be grateful he chose me at all." "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "Don't be. I'm the one who should apologize. I knew about Elizabeth when Kevin pursued me. I knew he had a pattern, but I thought I was different." She laughed bitterly. "We all think we're different, don't we?" She pulled out her phone, showing me a text thread. "I saved these. Call it insurance, or maybe just evidence that I'm not crazy. Look at how he talks about you." I read Kevin's messages, each one a small knife. "My brother's still playing artist. My parents are so embarrassed. Michael thinks he's some kind of creative genius." It's actually sad. At least when I take Emma, he'll have to face reality. He's wasting her potential. My parents already like her more than they ever liked him. This is almost too easy. "He planned it," I said, voice hollow. "It wasn't just opportunity. He planned to take her." Sarah nodded. "That's what he does. He sees someone happy with less than what he has, and he has to prove they're wrong, that their happiness isn't real, because it doesn't come with a six-figure salary and a condo with a view. Why are you showing me this? Because Emma deserves to know who she's marrying. And because—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Because someone should have warned me. Consider this my penance." She left the texts with me, said I could do whatever I wanted with them. I sat there for a long time after she left, staring at proof that my brother saw me not just as less than, but as someone to be actively crushed. That night, I made a decision, not for revenge, but for truth. Because Elizabeth was right, stories like this need to be told. And Emma, pregnant with my brother's child, deserved to know exactly who she'd chosen over me. The cease and desist letter had been just the beginning. When I didn't comply, when the blog posts kept coming and the art magazine article sparked more coverage, Kevin escalated. A formal lawsuit arrived on a Tuesday morning in April, delivered by a process server who looked apologetic as he handed over the envelope. The charges were almost laughable: defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and this was creative, tortious interference with business relations. Apparently, my smear campaign was affecting Kevin's professional reputation. One of his investors had pulled out after reading about his pattern of predatory behavior. "Good," Elizabeth said when I told her. We were in my studio, rain pattering against the windows, while I worked on a commission. Maybe money is the only language he understands. I couldn't afford a lawyer, not a good one anyway. But Portland's artistic community is tighter than most people realize. Within days of posting about the lawsuit on social media, I had offers of help. A lawyer named David Kim, who collected local art and had been following my story, offered to represent me pro bono. "Your brother made a mistake," David told me during our first meeting. "Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. And from what I've seen, you've been very careful to stick to facts. What about the other charges? Bullshit, pardon my language. He's trying to intimidate you. But here's the thing, discovery goes both ways. If he wants to open this door, we get to walk through it too." Discovery. Such a benign word for such a devastating process. Over the next months, David subpoenaed everything: emails, text messages, financial records. Kevin fought it, but judges don't look kindly on plaintiffs who want to sue but won't submit to scrutiny. The revelations were worse than I'd imagined. Kevin's pattern went back to college, a string of relationships that followed the same template. Target women dating men he saw as beneath him. Befriend both parties. Slowly poison the relationship while positioning himself as the better option. Move on once the conquest was complete. But it was the financial records that really damned him. Turns out Kevin's success wasn't quite as self-made as he claimed. Our parents had been funneling money to him for years, down payments for property investments in his company, bailouts when deals went bad. Meanwhile, they'd told me repeatedly that they couldn't help with my student loans because children need to learn independence. "This is gold," David said, reviewing the documents. "Not only does it establish a pattern of favoritism, but it undermines their entire narrative about you being the family failure." The mediation was scheduled for a Friday in June, 2 weeks before Kevin and Emma's wedding. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of dramatic timing. I dressed carefully that morning, not in a suit like Kevin would expect, but in dark jeans and a blazer over a vintage band tee. Elizabeth had helped me pick the outfit. "You're an artist," she'd said. "Don't let them make you pretend otherwise." The mediator's office was in a glass tower downtown, all clean lines and corporate art. Kevin was already there when I arrived, sitting at the conference table in a Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. Our parents flanked him like bodyguards. Emma sat slightly apart, visibly pregnant now, her face pale above a floral dress. I hadn't seen her since that day in the coffee shop. The sight of her hand resting on her belly, diamond ring catching the light, should have hurt. Instead, I felt oddly detached, like looking at a stranger wearing a familiar face. "Michael." My mother's voice was ice. "I hope you're pleased with yourself," Grace David warned. "Let's keep this civil." Kevin's lawyer, a shark in Armani, immediately tried to take control. "My client has been irreparably damaged by Mr. Chen's malicious campaign." "Your client," David interrupted smoothly, "initiated this action. We're perfectly happy to go to trial if that's what he wants. I think a jury would be very interested in the evidence we've uncovered." He slid a folder across the table. Kevin's lawyer opened it, his face paling as he read. Kevin leaned over, and I watched the exact moment he realized what we had. His jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath his skin. "What is that?" Emma asked, the first words she'd spoken. "Nothing," Kevin said quickly. Too quickly. "Evidence," David corrected, "of a pattern of behavior going back over a decade." "Would you like to see it, Ms. Martinez?" "She doesn't need," Kevin started. "Yes." Emma's voice was quiet but firm. "I'd like to see it." What followed was excruciating. Emma read in silence, her face cycling through confusion, recognition, and finally a terrible understanding. When she reached the text messages to Sarah Kim, the ones where Kevin bragged about taking her from me, her hands started shaking. "Is this real?" She looked at Kevin, searching his face. "Did you actually write these?" "It's taken out of context," Kevin said, but his usual smooth confidence was cracking. "Emma, sweetheart, you know how Michael is. He's twisting things." "Don't." The word came out sharp. She turned to me and for the first time in months really looked at me. "How long have you known about this?" "Sarah Kim gave me the texts in March," I said honestly. "The rest came out during discovery. And you didn't tell me. Would you have believed me?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Then, no, I wouldn't have." She stood abruptly, one hand supporting her belly. "I need some air." "Emma." Kevin reached for her, but she stepped away. "Don't touch me. Not right now." After she left the room, exploded. My mother accused me of trying to destroy Kevin's marriage out of jealousy. My father threatened to disown me, apparently forgetting he basically already had. Kevin, his mask finally slipping, showed the ugly truth beneath. "You always were pathetic," he snarled. "Sitting in that studio, playing with colors, pretending you matter. At least now, Emma knows what she escaped." "Enough," the mediator said firmly. "Let's take a 15-minute break." I stepped onto the balcony, Portland spreading below in its gray glory. David joined me, looking satisfied. "That went well," he said. "Did it? I feel like I just blew up my entire family." "No, Michael. Your family blew themselves up. You just stopped covering for them." When we reconvened, Kevin's lawyer had a new offer. Drop the lawsuit, sign a mutual non-disclosure agreement, and everyone walks away. The alternative was clear: go to trial and let a jury see everything. "No NDA," I said. "I won't be silenced." "Then we'll see you in court," Kevin spat. But we never made it to court. 3 days later, Kevin withdrew the lawsuit. David heard through the legal grapevine that Emma had given him an ultimatum: drop the case or lose her and the baby. For once, Kevin's self-interest worked in my favor. The wedding was called off. Emma moved back to her parents' house in Beaverton. My parents predictably blamed me for ruining Kevin's happiness. The family fractured completely, relatives choosing sides, holiday gatherings becoming impossibilities. But I was free. Free from their expectations, their judgments, their conditional love. The legal battle had cost me the last pretense of family, but it had given me something more valuable, the truth acknowledged and undeniable. Standing in my studio that night, surrounded by art born from pain, I realized I wasn't trying to fill a hole anymore. I was building something new in the space where my family used to be. A year later, almost to the day after that disastrous Thanksgiving dinner, I stood in my own gallery space in the Alberta Arts District. The opening was in 2 hours, and I was fighting the urge to reorganize everything for the 100th time. "Stop fussing," Marcus said, handing me a beer from the brewery we'd collaborated on a special release for the show. "It's perfect." The space was small, but mine secured with the help of a successful Kickstarter campaign and a loan from a collective of local artists who believed in my work. The walls held my newest series, Resurrection. Still abstract, but the colors had shifted from the dark reds and blacks of my pain period to blues and golds and greens, growth colors, hope colors. Elizabeth arrived early, as promised, carrying a massive bouquet of sunflowers. For luck, she said, then stepped back to survey the space. "Holy shit, Michael, you actually did it." "We did it," I corrected. She'd been instrumental in everything from connecting me with the right people to talking me through the panic attacks that still sometimes hit at 3 a.m. The opening was deliberately scheduled for first Thursday, when the Arts District would be crawling with people. But I hadn't sent invitations to my family. That chapter was closed, I thought. Some bridges once burned were meant to stay ash. People started filtering in around 6. Artists, collectors, curious wanderers drawn by the music spilling onto the street. I lost myself in conversations about process and inspiration, in the simple joy of watching people connect with my work. Then I saw her. Emma stood in the doorway, hesitant, a baby carrier strapped to her chest. She'd cut her hair shorter and there were new lines around her eyes, but she looked settled, like someone who'd weathered a storm and found solid ground. Our eyes met across the gallery. I nodded permission to enter, nothing more. She made her way through the crowd, slowly stopping at each piece. I watched her read the small cards that explained the inspiration behind each painting, saw her pause longest at one called Forgiveness, a wash of blues and whites that looked like rain clearing. Finally, she approached me. The baby was asleep, a perfect tiny human with a shock of dark hair. "Hi," she said simply. "Hi. The work is beautiful. You've really found your voice. Thanks." I looked at the baby, my nephew technically, though I'd never meet him as such. "Congratulations. His name is Aaron," she said quietly. "After someone who deserved better." I understood. Elizabeth had mentioned that she'd heard Emma reached out to Aaron, Kevin's first victim, to apologize. Small acts of redemption. Are you and Kevin co-parenting separately? She shifted the carrier slightly. The marriage lasted 3 months after he was born. Turns out Kevin doesn't like it when babies cry at 3 a.m. and disrupt his workout schedule. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I got Aaron out of it, and I got clarity." She paused, seeming to gather courage. "Michael, I owe you an apology, not just for choosing him, but for the letter, for making it seem like your dreams weren't enough. They were always enough. I was the one who wasn't." "Emma." "No, let me finish. I've been in therapy working through things. I realized I was so scared of uncertainty that I ran toward the first promise of stability, even if it came from the wrong person. Your brother offered me a future that looked safe. But safety isn't love. And love is worth the risk." I didn't know what to say. Part of me, the petty part, wanted to point out that I'd tried to tell her this, but a larger part, the part that had spent a year turning pain into art, just felt tired. "I'm glad you're figuring things out," I said finally. "Really, I hope you find what you're looking for." She nodded, understanding this wasn't a reconciliation, just a closure. Your parents aren't coming, are they? That bridge is pretty thoroughly burned. Their loss. She looked around the gallery at the red dots already appearing next to pieces indicating sales. You built something amazing here, without them, despite them. Before I could respond, Tyler appeared, camera in hand. Mike, stop hiding and let me get some photos of you with the O. He noticed Emma and his expression shifted to protective wariness. It's okay, I said. Emma was just leaving. She took the hint gracefully. Good luck tonight, Michael. You deserve all of this. After she left, Tyler whistled low. That was mature of you. I would have been petty as hell. Night's not over yet, I joked, but truthfully, I felt lighter. Seeing Emma hadn't hurt the way I'd expected. It was like looking at an old scar. You remember the wound, but the pain is just a memory. The rest of the opening was a blur of congratulations, sales, and connections. A writer from Willamette Week wanted to do a feature. A collector from Seattle bought 3 pieces. Marcus talked about commissioning a mural for the brewery's new location. Near the end of the night, as the crowd was thinning, an older woman approached me. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her until she spoke. You probably don't remember me, she said. Helen Kim from your parents' church. I tensed, waiting for judgment or a message from my mother. Instead, she smiled. I wanted to tell you that your story, your blog, your art helped my daughter. She was in a relationship where she was made to feel small, less than. Reading about your journey gave her the courage to leave. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep creating, keep telling the truth. It matters more than you know. After everyone left, Elizabeth and I sat on the gallery floor, surrounded by empty wine bottles and the debris of success. The walls looked strange, with gaps where sold pieces had hung. How does it feel? She asked. Surreal, good, scary. I leaned back against the wall, like I'm finally living my own life instead of apologizing for it. Good, that's how it should feel. She pulled out her phone. Oh shit, look at this. She showed me an Instagram post from a Portland food blogger who'd attended the opening. The caption read, "If you want to see what resurrection looks like, check out Michael Chen's gallery." This is what happens when artists choose truth over comfort. Stunning work from someone who refused to shrink himself for others' comfort. Already there were hundreds of likes, dozens of comments. People sharing their own stories of family rejection, of choosing authenticity over approval. My phone started buzzing with follow requests, messages, inquiries. You're going to need help, Elizabeth said. Lucky for you, I know a great person who just left her corporate job to work with artists full-time. Yeah, is she any good? The best. Fair warning, though, she's got a thing for moody artists who turn their trauma into beauty. I laughed, really laughed for the first time in so long. I think I can work with that. 6 months later, I stood in a much larger gallery in San Francisco, preparing for my first solo show outside Portland. Elizabeth was there, now officially my partner in both business and life, fielding calls from collectors and press. The show was called Family of Choice, and it featured portraits, real ones this time, of all the people who'd become my true family. Marcus, Tyler, Elizabeth, the artists who'd rallied around me, the strangers who'd become friends through shared stories of survival. My phone rang. Unknown Portland number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me swipe. Michael. The voice was smaller than I remembered, older. It's Mom. I stepped outside, needing air. What do you want? I saw an article about your show. You look... A pause. You look happy. I am. Your father doesn't know I'm calling. He's still angry. But I needed to tell you something. I waited, not making it easier. I was wrong. She said, the words rushing out like they'd been building pressure. About you, about your art, about everything. I see that now. Why now? I asked, genuinely curious. Why not a year ago, 5 years ago? Because Kevin is gone, she admitted. He moved to New York, barely calls. And I realized. I pushed away the son who actually cared for the one who knew how to perform caring. I chose the easy pride over the complicated love. Mom, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see it now, what we did, what I did, and I'm sorry. I stood there on a San Francisco sidewalk watching fog roll in from the bay, holding years of pain in one hand and my phone in the other. Thank you for calling, I said finally. I mean that, but I can't go backward. I've built something here without you, and I need to protect it. I understand, she whispered. Could I buy one of your paintings not to have you back, just to have something you created? To remember the sun I should have seen. They're for sale to the public, I said. Elizabeth handles all the transactions. It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't cruelty either. It was boundary firm but not unkind. After I hung up, I stood outside for a long moment, breathing in the damp air. Then I went back inside to my chosen family, to my art, to the life I'd built from the ashes of the one that had burned. The show was a massive success, but the real victory was smaller, quieter, the moment I looked around that gallery and realized I was exactly where I belonged. Not because anyone else validated it, but because I'd finally validated myself. That night, lying in bed with Elizabeth in our hotel room, she asked, "Any regrets?" I thought about it seriously. About the family I'd lost, the love that had betrayed me, the years of feeling insufficient. No, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. Every single thing led me here, and here is exactly where I want to be. She kissed me soft and sure. Good, because I've got galleries in Portland, Seattle, and LA interested in showing your next series. Already, we haven't even finished this one. That's what happens when you stop hiding your light, Michael Chen. The world notices. I pulled her closer, thinking about the boy who'd sat at his parents' Thanksgiving table, desperate for approval. He'd never imagined this life success on his own terms, love that didn't demand he shrink himself, art that told the truth even when it hurt. But that boy had one thing right. He'd kept creating even when they told him it was worthless. And in the end, that stubbornness, that refusal to abandon his truth, had saved him. The letter Emma mentioned, the one I'd burned, had said I needed someone who was already there, not someone who might get there someday. But she'd been wrong about that too. The journey was the whole point. And I'd needed someone who wanted to take it with me, not someone waiting at a destination I might never reach. I found that person. I found that life. I found myself, and it was enough. More than enough. It was everything.